Hi, I'm Liz Cully, and welcome back to Cool, Cool, Cool. Each week, I give you a glimpse into what I think is cool and chat with a ton of people that are definitely cool. No topic is off bounds unless, I guess, it's not cool. Welcome to Cool, Cool, Cool. Thank you all. I just want to thank Graham and Emily specifically really quickly. Woo! Didn't expect that one coming, huh, Graham? Because I was being annoying and hounded them pretty much all summer to do something for podcasters because I bet all of you have a podcast. Every single one of, oh, you do? Yeah. Oh yeah, you do, Sarah. Sarah podcasts for fucking like 9 hours a day. It's crazy. But I have an incredible panel here and I'm so excited for you to meet them all. They've all been very supportive of me in my podcasting career. So I'm Liz Cully. Thank you so much. I have thanks, John. I really appreciate that. I have a podcast called Cool, 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 which I self-produce, and it's really just about cool people in my world, just like all of these people. I have John Arthur Hill here. You're supposed to clap. Yikes. Wynter Mitchell. Emmy Olea. And I have Ashley Gavin. Ashley is so kind. She is on tour and going to the Hollywood Improv. So I'm going to do a couple of her questions first because she has to be so LA, jump in a lift.
I just didn't schedule properly.
That's okay. That's okay. I love it.
I appreciate the fancy intro.
I love it. I think it's like it's so, I don't know. It's very LA. You know what I mean? It's like, gotta hop in a lift. Before, though, I get to Ashley, I realized in my research that Wynter here has been in podcasting maybe the longest out of any person I have ever known, ever. The longest, other than Mark Maron, who lives down the street from me.
Right.
But you started, is it 2015? Was that correct?
No, it was 2008, actually.
Oh, see, there you go. I didn't even get it right. 2008?
Yeah.
What show was that?
I did a show for Engadget. I did
Wow.
5 or 6 episodes with someone. And it was just a tech show. I used to work for Tech TV back in the day, in my late teens, early 20s. So it was like an extension of that. It was a relationship that came from there. And they were experimenting with audio programming, and it was very new. So they didn't know how to like monetize it, distribute it. It was like online. You had to click and like watch the bar.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, there was no Apple Podcasts at that point.
What did they call it? A podcast? I mean,
yeah,
back in 1852, did they call it a podcast, or was it like online?
A swine farm.
Or was it online radio?
It was like online radio. It was like, remember radio.com? Like Netscape, Navigator? It was like those people like making a foray. And what happened back then, if you guys want to have a discussion about the insidious nature of Silicon Valley, is that they just want to get a bunch of money, pretend like they're doing something, and then say, mine, and then get out. And that's what happened. Long story short. But the real career began in 2015 with Pop Rocket.
Right.
And then Pop Rocket lasted 5 years, and then I started Waiting to Exhale, and then now I'm going to be starting my new solo show, Tangent Island.
Yeah, clap. So John is just clapping away here. Exactly. We don't have to be quiet in here. 5 years is it feels like a very long time, especially for a pop culture show. When I started to look at some of your first episodes, actually I have some of the notes. I went all the way back. It was pages of scrolling, Wynter. I was like, oh my God, they've covered everything. One of the first episodes was, hold on. These were the first people that you covered in that show. John Travolta, Kanye, because he's still kicking. Caitlyn Jenner's Vanity Fair cover, which I love. You even had one of my old school homies, actually also one of Courtney's old friends, Josh, a.k.a. Fat Jew, which feels very early aughts. Yeah. Some of these people are still in the zeitgeist. Would you think that you would cover those stories the same way as you did in 2015, or would it be different?
I'm actually at the point, the reason I'm starting Tangent Island is because mostly of COVID. Like going through COVID and having a show about pop culture was really hard because every day was a fucking nightmare. But I found that my consumption of pop culture changed because the world changed. So everything that I had caught before when we were on the run, we were all doing everything, we were going back and forth, I didn't have the time to take things and like really value and digest them. It was like whatever was snackable, which I think is a problem in entertainment now. We just want things snacky. And I'm 43. I grew up when, you had 2-minute long intros to sitcoms. So I don't know why we got to the point where everything had to be like a freaking snack. So I found
you're a little snack though.
I'm a little snack though.
You look real cute.
Thank you very much. Ow. And then what I did find, I did find that I started doing things in terms of my digestion of content way different. So I started talking about things differently. Like I would spend 8 hours watching Bon Appetit. I would spend a lot of time watching YouTube and 90 Day Fiance, which I had no Love After Lockup. I was like,
please, I'm ovulating tomorrow.
That's what I'm
feeling very horny talking about Love
After Lockup, Big Ed. And so then I just said to myself, like, I would have never had the time to watch this. I thought I was above all of this stuff. I'm deeply in it. And then I got to the post-COVID mindset that I really want to start talking more about the cross-section of pop culture, but also like what we all just went through and talk through that in a really fun and engaging way without being obsessive and like preachy. I just want to have conversations. I don't think my current show is necessarily set up to just be a conversation. We're definitely referential. We talk about pop culture through the lens of Generation X. So, I mean, we'll get into this more, but the notion that you evolve as a podcaster and you might feel beholden to being stuck in one genre because you think that's all you can do I don't believe in that.
Yeah, that's actually a really great segue to you, Ashley.
Cool.
Because I gotta go.
I know you do. I know. Don't worry.
No, we'll do good.
You started We're Having Gay Sex on your own, self-produced.
Yes.
They just turned me off. I'm not that interesting.
They turned me off. Oh, no.
Oh, okay. Boo, boo, boo. You started We're Having Gay Sex on your own, self-produced. I think even in the style that you were doing it, the video content that you were self-producing really set the tone for a ton of podcasters, specifically Gen Z, because you understand them. I don't know if I do yet. But then I'm like, what? What are you guys talking about? But you then took that show and went with a major podcasting studio, Studio 71. Did you have to change your style of recording, not only audio and video, which I think you mastered really, especially because you started it right around COVID or a little bit before, or was it in COVID?
I came up with the idea in like early 2019 and then started recording before COVID, and I had 6 episodes going into COVID, and then we recorded mostly, through COVID, yeah.
Yeah, but you blew up in COVID. And I think the way that you and your co-host would interview guests at that time, like it was, DIY, so to speak. But it really, I think a lot, even myself, a lot of people now record their content that way. When you moved on to Studio 71, having those resources, did you change the way that you recorded, or is it still pretty much the same?
No, the only thing we changed as we had money to make it better. Like everything was just like super shot. So just so you know how it's shot, I don't know if you guys record your own content, but we recorded on a Zoom into like Adobe Audition. We started with GarageBand, and we started with iPhones. And I, as a comedian, use an iPhone rather than a camera because the camera is almost as good as any camera you can buy, and it's thin, and you can have a terabyte of space, and like you guys get it. So we would have just 2 phones facing opposite directions, and
one for the plug, one for the load. Sorry. Nobody? Okay. All right.
And
nobody knows rap music in this room. That's okay. Keep going. It's fine.
Sure.
Okay.
Another lyric. Bars. But then as we scaled and I was like able to, when I went with Studio 71, I decided rather than you can, when you work with a network, you can give them some extra percentage to do that stuff for you, or you can continue to do it yourself. So I was like, no, we're just going to do it myself, and I'm going to hire an editor, and that editor part-time. And then I hired him full-time to become like the producer and the editor. And then we moved into a bigger apartment. So then we had like a studio, and we bought cameras, and then we bought like a multicam switch. And then we just, as I had the money to do it, I just kept getting the equipment as I could afford it. So
do you feel like your audience really grew from upping the production, or do you think it was just natural? You don't?
No, I actually think do it as cheap as humanly possible. Nothing matters. The internet is the dumbest, as long as it's the only thing that you're competing against is the watch time, right? So you need to have enough quality so that people aren't like, this is a potato, I'm moving on to the next clip. As long as you don't look like a potato, they're going to watch your clip. So it can't be your shitty phone from 2008. It has to be watchable. But as long as it's the only reason we moved up in quality was because I was like, this is going to save my editor and my producer time.
Interesting.
So I have his time so that he can work on other things, if that makes sense.
No, that totally makes sense. I mean, you are so big on TikTok. I mean, you are. You're my Gen Z queen over here.
That's funny because I hate them more than anything on the planet. You can have them.
Really struggle on TikTok. You are really coming into your own. That apartment tour.
I'm inspired by you.
What? From what? There's nothing on.
You're so thirsty on TikTok in a good way, in a great way. You're doing it.
Thank you, John. It's so. It's not my space. You and I kind of chat on TikTok. Emmy, I don't know how you're not on TikTok. Okay.
I am not good at TikTok.
It's scary for me.
It's scary.
Ashley, you really have just fucking got the TikTok down. But again, you're talking about clips. I mean, a lot of what I see on your TikTok is your stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
Touring is such a big part of what when I originally started my first podcast, Scissoring Isn't a Thing, RIP, that was like the big thing. They're like, we're going to get you girls out here talking about scissoring, and then you're going to go on a world tour. And I'm like, but you are selling out my hometown, San Francisco, which is amazing. Do you feel like it's are you in sort of a wheel right now? Are you feeling like the TikTok
you could call it a
feed-
wheel.
Okay.
Can you guys tell that I am upset?
A touch.
No, like
A touch.
everything, like it's wonderful, but it definitely is like a wheel for sure. You can't, media is dead and we're all in a clip machine. And if you're
glad I work at Condé Nast.
I would love to be in a clip machine, but
I got a clip
unfortunately,
machine I can tell you about.
Clip machine.
Slinging those ads at a dead media
Like
company.
we're all just, I don't know what any of you guys do, but like if I don't post on TikTok, I don't sell tickets. It's a direct to consumer market now. So like I have to keep making the content or I don't sell the tickets. And it is like I call it like a funnel. So like you're going to get, it takes however many watches for someone to click on your link. And when they click on that link, boy, it better be a good fucking link because you want to collect their information. You want them to arrive at the destination and stay there and either give you their money or their data. So like you just constantly have to be moving. I know I'm a maniac.
That's how it works, John. It's just a data funnel.
I know. It's awful. It's grim.
That's why you get all those ads for muscle milk.
It's
Our data. You want data?
I want phone numbers. I want zip codes. That's all I care about.
She is speaking truth.
Yeah.
If you don't own your own audience and you don't know who they are, where they live, who's out there, then you really are just walking around blind. I work with we talked about this earlier, I work with a lot of comedians and my clients. I'm a digital strategist by day. And, the amount of work it takes to get them into a funnel, a list of people just that will give you the information so you can move into a direction where there's a conversion happening.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's speaking truth. You absolutely have to have your own audience and own them and know who they are and if Instagram goes down, if Twitter decides to shit the bed like it has, if Facebook, you're not going to have anything. I mean, if you're on Twitter and you've been killing it on Twitter and your engagement goes down.
Yeah. And the algorithms change every day.
The algorithms change every day.
So you have to capture them and you have to know what you need to capture. I don't know what your businesses are, but mine is tickets. So it's I need their phone number and I need their zip code. And if you went to like my Instagram bio, you can see what mine is, but like I don't even like list anything else. It's just you click the link and immediately I will text you when I'm in your city zip code number. Like that's it. Cause like there's like
is that your real phone number texting people? Cause I am silly and I text people and I'm like, well.
Every now and then when someone sends me shit, I will reply in like the weird app that I use for the texting.
So it is like an app. It's almost like Community. Do you know that app?
Yeah. It's not Community, but I use something similar.
Oh my God, that's my dream. I would love to just text strangers.
I have 100,000 lesbians you could text right now.
Thank you for coming. This was a really nice night. Well, you talk a lot about audience, listeners. You talk to a lot of audience and listeners on Sirius XM. You have a lot of callers.
Well, I'm realizing I'm lazy. I do work at Sirius XM, and it's actually our 8th anniversary. I am Andy Cohen's co-host for 8 years, and they do all of that, I guess, for us. I guess I need to learn how to do that myself.
That's awesome.
Those are the subscribers, and they have their information, their data.
Yeah,
I
Sirius
just show
XM
up and
has
I talk and I go home.
But
I'm dumb.
That's no, that's better.
It is better, but I'm poorer than you.
I don't know, man.
No, I am. Like, because if Sirius goes down, then who am I emailing? I don't know.
Well, I actually
they
saw.
do.
Well, I'm a subscriber, so you can email me.
Okay, I will. I'll text you.
Yeah, text me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you, I get so nervous, and Ashley and I talked about this before we started tonight, about listener interaction. Because it can go very well, it can go very south. Don't worry, Emmy, I'm coming to you. You have a beautiful narrative podcast, and thank God you protect your heart and your soul and your mind by just not speaking to the masses. But really, though, and even when you had me the one time on your show, which I'd like to come back again,
Please
just
come
if
back.
everyone wanted to hear that in public, I was so nervous because I'm like, who the fuck's going to call? And of course, the sweethearts call. Oh, Liz, like, meh. But how do you... Is that like a muscle that you have to develop? I mean, I know, Ashley, you're like a fucking machine spitting out goddamn bullets out the side at your comedy show with fan interaction. But live radio, I mean, I was a caller into the radio, but I would practice my questions. Like,
yeah, well, we're live, so it's nerve-wracking anyway. It was for a while, and then it became a skill, and I'm a live performer, so once I realized that it was just the same, it's just audio and there's no one watching, it became really easy. And now I have a hard time doing a podcast that isn't live. It's more fun for me to be doing it live. But no, it's easy. It's very black and white. If someone's being crazy, you go, "You're crazy," and you hang up. And
it's like
that's
how
on
every
so
call
nice.
with my
That's
mom
on
goes
them.
with me.
That's on them, because you hear it and you're like, you don't have to say anything mean, because everyone you hear the silence of everyone listening. Oh, this person sounds, but no one ever calls. Actually, no, a lot of crazy people call. And
I listen to your show. A lot of people are crazy. Did you used to call?
We love them though.
Did you used to call into the radio growing up?
I won a contest. I won a Make Your Dog Bark contest, and I made
would
my
win $1
dog.
million.
She was a Schnauzer. Her name was Molly. I made her bark on cue, and I got free tickets to the premiere of Kindergarten Cop in San Antonio, Texas, and I went to see it. Yeah,
Not twins?
A Star Was Born. That dog's
Twins
dead.
keeps coming up in my life a lot recently. I don't know why. No Twins fans? Arnold Schwarzenegger? Nobody? Yeah, I know you are, Courtney. Wow. Okay.
So I've always been in radio.
But that was my dream. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, I used to call 102.9 KBLX, Bay Area, stand the fuck up right now.
You're younger than me, right?
KBLX?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. I was definitely calling Wild 94.9 and
Yeah, well, Chewy Gomez in the building?
Yeah.
What's good? Get out of here.
106.
106 KMEL. Come on now. 98.1. I mean, we could go there, but yeah, we'll get there. Yeah. I had a sip of wine. I don't know if a yada is coming. We'll see. I'm trying to keep it professional. But I think now it's so interesting that we can all sort of be, quote, on the radio no matter what now, which is very different. But there is a prestige and there is a lot of infrastructure at being somewhere like a Sirius XM, which is what you were saying to Ashley, in the sense like you don't know the subscribers. Emmys with iHeart.
Right. It's so impressive, learning as you go and building from the ground up. Like I wouldn't know how a camera works really in the studio or how it's all happening. You have an understanding of that. I like the laziness of showing up and
being beautiful,
being entitled.
It's just I feel like
I'm entitled.
Emmy, you have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful show called Crumbs, which, by the way, second season yesterday debuted. Can we get a clap, please? Because that's huge.
Thank you.
I found out about Emmy because I'm trying to become friends with all of my neighbors in my neighborhood.
What's wrong with you? I avoid my neighbors.
No, you got to. Once you move to the burbs, you got to what if shit pops off?
It's so true.
Lockdown.
Nah, you got to have the cool people in the neighborhood because a lot of people
they
don't
have
like
your back.
Yeah,
It's like a Twilight Zone episode when something goes down and you're all together.
yeah. See, we moved to the valley, so we know about this stuff. But I met your producer Alex Fumero, who's incredible. He and I were talking, and he's like, "You have to listen to this podcast," and I did, and it's beautiful, and I love it so much. I really do. I'm like emotional about it. I want you to listen to every single person's podcast on this panel, but I'm also telling you to listen to Emmy's immediately because it's narrative. And that is not what I typically used to consume. I listen to comedians, pop culture. Like you really go about podcasting very differently than all of us on this panel, maybe some of you in the audience. How is it going in? I mean, you and I talked a little bit about this on my podcast, but with a script, it feels like, or like, tell me a little bit about making a narrative podcast because, I keep asking you a question and then continue to talk. Narrative podcasts are actually the number one rising category next to crime. And murder. Well, we all know everybody loves a true crime podcast, but narrative podcasts are becoming so incredibly popular. What is that process of recording like?
So when I went into recording for season 1 of Crumbs, I thought I was going to meet with my producer and I was going to have a script and that I was going to have to read everything out loud. So everything I talk about in Crumbs is my life story, right? As it pertains to, in season 1, dating, my failed relationships. But here, I was expecting a script, and no, it was just a conversation with my producer. So then I sat down with one of my producers, Margaret Catcher, and she said, Emmy, let's talk about your first relationship. So the show is about the things we settle for in relationships and dating as a trans woman, and the differences and obstacles that I've had to face in relationships. So she's like, tell me your first serious relationship dating as a woman. And so I sat down with her and we talked for hours. I think, you were talking about somebody recording for 9 hours. That was like our first day was literally like 5 hours of just a conversation of relationships. And little did I know that these conversations were going to turn out to be the episodes of the series. I had no idea. She didn't either. It just worked out that way. So it was supposed to be scripted. And the only thing that was scripted in this process were the intros and the outros.
Wow. Awesome. You have to listen. That's great. You got a great editor because you would not have known. I felt like every single episode that you did was one singular session even. Like it's so beautifully, you can't even, there's like no beat. It's just so seamless. So you would go in and have these conversations and how many times you went in for just the one time, or was it a long process?
So actually, we started recording during COVID. So we started in the studio.
Got it.
We had a conversation maybe for about 4 hours in the studio. Then this was the first shutdown. They opened back up. We went to the studio, started our recording then. And then the second shutdown happened. And so they said, we can't record in the studio anymore. So they had to send equipment to where I lived. And so it was just Zoom calls with my producer. And I think we did about 4 sessions. And after we finished, once they had balances and everything, then they said, okay, we have a few pickup lines, but nothing too crazy. But yeah, it was mostly just conversations between me and my producer.
That's awesome.
That is amazing. I mean, that's incredible because it just flows and it's beautiful. I mean, how did you feel when you listened to the season knowing that, you had these natural conversations that were then edited into specific episodes?
I was very proud of the result.
Yeah.
Something really beautiful came out. And the thing about talking about my relationships, I had to get very vulnerable and talk about some very uncomfortable things and some scary things that I knew like my family was going to listen to. And I'm like, oh my God, do I really want to do that? Do I really want to go there? But like I said, I didn't know that this was going to be an episode.
Right.
So I was very transparent with my producer, and that's how I guess you can hear the rawness of our conversation in the episodes.
100%.
And so for me, that was very rewarding. I'm like, okay, well, this is going to help someone. This is going to help someone who's gone through a similar situation. And that's why I said, you know what? Screw it. Let's do it.
Yeah. Everybody here, even through some of the laughs and such, are all very vulnerable people. You have been very vulnerable on your show. Why are you laughing? I feel like that Instagram reel that you really hit me deep. You've been very vulnerable. You are about to even get more vulnerable. You just went viral all over the internet. Wynter, there I was on Us Weekly looking at, looking for inspiration of Meredith Marks for this outfit this evening. I'm just kidding. And some article popped up like of a feed from you. You know how like at the bottom, Brain Trust, come on, yeah.
Brain Trust got me in the loop.
Yeah, girl, you got in the loop talking about family planning and whatnot. Emmy, your show is really vulnerable. You talk a lot about sex.
Yeah.
So much sex.
Yeah. Every week I tell a story about my sex life on my podcast. I really just wanted to.
Are you single or are you dating?
I'm dating now.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
I didn't know if you were talking about like sex with one person because I was like, how many times
No.
I mean,
There were periods of time like that too.
Okay.
So you dig deep and you look back and you talk about your butthole and.
Okay.
Do you talk about your butthole?
I have nothing left. I've bared my soul to the world.
Yeah. Well, do you regret it?
No.
Did you ever get shadow banned like me constantly?
Oh, yeah. I mean, fighting TikTok is a nightmare.
Do you think TikTok is worse than Instagram in terms of shadow banning?
I don't know. They're all they all have their specific rules, but you just like get better at like knowing what you're allowed to say.
You say segs. That's what the kids,
stuff
that's
like
what the
that,
kids
but
say. Looks like eggs, but it's sex.
Yeah. You just learn like what you need to bleep, and if it's like visual, if you're like describing something visual, you like can't usually say it. You got to bleep something. It's not just like sex as a phrase. It's like just don't play around with them. They'll fuck your life up.
They fuck my life up all the time.
Yeah.
That goddamn internet, let me tell you. Is there anything in terms of now that I feel like you're the master of sex, you're moving on to into the next vulnerable cyclone of your world? I don't know.
Yeah.
What else is there? Her butthole is out.
My heart, maybe. My soul. My stand-up is a lot more vulnerable, I think. But like I talked about my like breakup on there and about the woman that I'm dating and freezing my eggs and just like all kinds of stuff. I mean, I have probably a too personal relationship with the listeners of my.
No, that's that was kind of my next question. I feel like do you feel like you've given up too much of yourself and now it's hard to kind of keep things private?
I worry less about my privacy and more about like I'm in the probably not really relatable experience of like having people who think that I made a podcast during a time where a lot of people were coming out and realizing that they were gay, particularly women. And by the way, you should do my podcast.
I would love to.
But
yes.
Just going to get that in before I have to run. But I should probably, yeah. But,
I'm glad you got that in.
They are not necessarily stand-up comedy fans. So I'm in this very interesting predicament where people come to my shows and they're like, oh, that's my gay mommy that helped me come out of the closet. And then they hear me kind of like, I'm a real right on the edge kind of comedian. I'm a very traditional comedian. So that's been really interesting to navigate, is I'll have people there being like, this is not what I expected. And I was like, well, what did you think? We're going to braid our pubic hair together? Leave me alone. But
I think so.
yeah, no, so that's, people will get very attached to you if you're doing something personal, and they're going to make extrapolations about your life. And it's not necessarily an issue of privacy. It's more an issue of just the time that they spend with you every week.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there's really a way to avoid that in the the way that we.
That's what we sign up for.
Yeah. That's just part of the job. And it's really weird.
Yeah. I've cried like so many times to the point where I was like, I'm crying warning, like I'm going to start crying. And I cry about a number of different things. It's not always just a story that I'm telling, or it's like something, Sinead O'Connor death, Pee Wee Herman, who laughed about that? Pee Wee Herman's death. I mean, like, those things are emotional if you're a Gen Xer. I'm sorry you're not.
I cried.
Sorry.
Sinead O'Connor hit me hard.
Yeah, it hit me hard.
Pee Wee Herman, it didn't hit me as hard, but I understood the cultural.
I'm older than you.
significance.
I feel like I'm older than a lot of people in here.
I'm just saying, like, in terms of that, you just had two people there, and I
You just had to
was
be
trying to interject.
there.
Yeah, no, you do have to be there, but I think you also have. I think
That's what my show is about. It's Generation X and our perspective of these things. Like, we are reacting to things that are happening through the lens, because we're the next boomer generation. Like, we're the next ones that you're going to be like, oh, grandma. Like, we know that. But we're acutely aware of that. Like, we don't give a fuck. But, like, we also feel very possessive and illuminated by the fact that we had really fucking kick-ass pop culture growing up. And we also knew what it was like to not have phones attached to our foreheads. And we also know what it was like to drink water out of a hose. Like, there's things about our generation that we hold really close to us, which is what my current show's about. And I take pride in that, because I'm aging through this process in a way that's different than the way my parents aged through it and the way their parents aged through it. So that's really the lens I'm looking at it through. It's not for, like, millennials. It could be if they want.
you're like right on the edge, though.
No, I'm not.
You're not. 43.
1980. I'm not a millennial. Please do not assign that.
No,
to
no.
me.
I get.
don't want
Wynter,
it.
I've known you too long. We are not going to tussle in the Soho house, West Hollywood, right now.
No, we are not.
But no, because I cannot lose this membership, honey. Let me tell you. Okay. So you're
Wait,
Gen X all the way.
I want her to wrap up because she has to go.
I don't know. I hope I did a good job. I don't know what people wanted from this.
You're lovely. And
Okay.
can you come on
you
my
sold it
podcast?
really
Can we
great.
give a
I'm
round of
listening.
applause?
I don't know. I'm like very responsive if you have specific questions on your gay sex podcast. You can DM me on Instagram. I'm
text her.
Ashley Gavin.
Oh my God, text
Or
her.
just text me, honestly.
Chatbot,
Better Instagram.
GPT will hit you back.
Break a leg at your show.
Yeah, break a
Thank you. I
leg.
appreciate it. Bye,
Ashley. Thank you, Ashley.
Bye,
You guys
Ashley.
are all really nice, special people.
Thank you.
too.
Love that. Thank you also, Ashley, for just cutting that potential fight between Wynter and I about if you were a millennial or not. You know what's tough for me is I think I'm sort of I'm in that weird age group where I'm not a millennial, not a Gen X. I'm just sort of like, I had good music growing up and Kids Incorporated and like, do you know what I mean?
You were there. I don't want to be elitist about it. I just think that I just being born in 1980 is special.
And in the Bay.
And in San Francisco.
We're
Not
a little
Oakland.
elitist about that.
It was a different world.
It was a different time. Things were different. That's why I bring up the radio with you, John, because it was like a big deal. The radio was a really, really big deal for me.
Totally, me too.
Growing
It was
up.
like local news anchors were the biggest celebrities to me as well.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and
Same.
DJs on. Yeah, huge local DJs.
Hatton?
Come on.
Come on.
Yeah.
I want to switch a little bit into, you again, now we're back into the pop culture arena. You, John, are just fucking in the Lady Pond deep of Bravo. Yeah. I live an adjacent Bravo lifestyle. It's not easy. I don't know how the fuck you do it.
Well, what do you mean? I'm not as entrenched as I've carefully created boundaries around myself where I wrote on Watch What Happens Live for 4 years in New York. And
just listen to how not entrenched he is.
I didn't ever have to really, I'm not drawn to watch a lot of reality TV.
You don't watch any Bravo.
I don't not watch it. I just don't watch a lot of TV, period.
Okay.
And so I'm not like, the tea. I hate tea. I hate spilling tea or doing fucking shit with tea. And like, I hate when people are talking to me about tea because I don't know about the tea. I don't care about the tea. I want to like think about other things that are maybe more inspiring to me, like the news. But I am around it and I hear a lot of it and I do like, it makes me laugh. But I'm not as entrenched in the world. Although it would have maybe served me better to have a strictly Bravo podcast, maybe because those people are now rich.
Yeah. Well, this is, I don't know, because you keep looking at.
I always used to say, who's going to recap a television show? Yeah. A wise woman once said, if your creativity is reacting to someone else's creativity, you're on the wrong path. That to me is absolutely true. Yeah. So I didn't want to create anything that was based on reacting off of something that someone else was creating. I want to create something myself. So, but those people are laughing all the way to the bank because those people are rich as fuck.
Yeah. Well, amen. Fair enough. I ask you because you are Bravo adjacent. You do the news. When I came on your show, I was fucking panicked because I've never watched a single episode to this day of Vanderpump Rules. In my life, I've never seen it. I'm not going to start now.
I haven't either.
I think I'm good.
It's okay.
No, I'm done. I'm not interested. No, but I was panicked because when I came on your show, it was like height of fucking Scandival. And I'm like, oh God. And we didn't talk about it. We talked about...
What made me most important in Watch What Happens Live was the fact that everyone else was watching so much Bravo, but I was the person who didn't. So it was another perspective. In the writer's room, it was like, well... I always like having people on who maybe have never, I like different voices in there.
Do you think the Bravo market though is a bit saturated or do you think it's an endless tap of,
recapping podcast stuff?
Or just like Bravo commentary. I mean, speaking of Meredith Marks, who I look way too similar like tonight, she just launched a podcast. It's like it never ends.
Well, I think maybe it's a bigger question about what are we doing for entertainment and how are we processing media as human beings? We're looking at things differently. We all used to go, when there was no TV, people went to the theater. That changed. Now we're watching our phones. We're just taking things in differently and then processing it differently. So I think at some point, have you ever seen Mad Max, the sequel?
Yeah.
With Charlize Theron.
Yeah.
And there's that one scene where they're all in the desert with like the lesbian colony, bringing it back to you. And they're all like, they're looking at the stars and, they're in the future, looking back at where we are. And they're like, oh, those are everybody's shows. Those are everybody's shows. Like literally a part of being alive is to have a show. So I feel like we are headed in that direction at some point. So I think we should assume that everyone is going to have some sort of broadcasting capability, unfortunately or fortunately.
Well, that's the question, right? Do we need another podcast? Is it okay to have this many shows? Does everybody need a show?
It's going to happen whether we like it or not. I mean, probably in some form or another. Maybe not a podcast, but something else will be invented maybe. And then we'll all do those.
What do you think, Emmy? Does everybody need a podcast?
No.
I warned you I was going to ask everybody
The thing is, too, though, we don't have to listen to them. I think everyone, go ahead, have yours. I don't listen to a lot of them. I listen to what I need to listen to, what I want to listen to, and that's the beauty of that they're all out there. But like, if you want to express yourself, absolutely do it.
Yeah.
I won't listen.
Yeah. I think it also, though, it begs the question. I mean, it's really hard to make money in audio at the present. However, it is not slowing down in terms of audience. It is only growing. We are seeing more shows. We are seeing more of an appetite. Average time is going up. And the deals, especially for network, are getting into the 7-8 figures, but it's a really small pool. We chatted about this a little bit.
I want Emmy gonna
Emmy
gonna say something.
I think that it feels hard. It's like daunting, right? I think, even some people are like, oh, you have this podcast and you're on the show and you've done all that. And I'm like, yeah, but it feels really intense and it feels really hard to make money. Is that what it's all about anymore? Do you have to be with a network? I don't know. Sorry. I mean, you were going to say.
I mean, being in a network has its pros and its cons, right? In terms of visibility, reach, you're going to get that. Like I too, like John, I just show up and record. I'm not looking into the audience and collecting their data and stuff like that. So I just show up, I record. And it has its advantages as far as reach and visibility. However, it also has its cons, like creative freedom, right? For me, that was huge because of the nature of my podcast. I wanted it to sound a certain way. I wanted it to look a certain way. And I'm going to say, season 1, my experience was so different than it was in season 2. Because by the time that I got to season 2 recording, I had a different producer. I had to fall in love with her. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
And so for me, that was like my biggest hang up in when I started recording season 2. But I said, you know what, fuck it. I'm just going to roll with the punches because I'm contractually obligated to, and I'm creating something beautiful with somebody that I love very much, my mother. And we did it. However, I had more restraints on season 2. And there were times when I was just not happy with my producer. I'm not happy with our ending. And I'm still fighting to re-record that.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to have a different ending. And so that's the disadvantage of being in a network that's handling everything monetary, that I don't have the creative freedom to keep my authenticity. And, you know, like one of my biggest pet peeves from a producer is like, and how did that make you feel? Like, I hate that. Don't ask me. Like, let me react to what's happening naturally. A lot of my conversations, most of my podcast is all organic.
Right.
It's not anything except for the intros and outros that's scripted. Everything else are just conversations that I'm having with someone. And so season 2 is very similar in that sense. But then I'd have a little like somebody chime in like, well, how does that make you feel hearing that? I'm like, what is this, fucking therapy? Like, no, let me have a conversation with my mom and let's just see what happens. And so, yeah.
Okay, first of all, I'm so excited that the second season is with your mom. You like teased that a little bit when we chatted the other day. You're like, I think you're going to.
Well, you hadn't finished the season 1 yet.
I
so
know.
I wanted you to like, I didn't want to spoil it for you because I don't know how much I should say about season 1.
No, everybody has to listen and then they can DM you and figure it out. I love that though. But I feel you. I started my podcasting career on a network and I was cast with someone and it was fine and it was great, but they had a vision of who we were and what we were going to be. And I think we didn't fit that all the time. And I think that was really hard. And I felt like I didn't know enough about podcasting at the time. And I also fell into the trap of wanting to be something that I saw was being successful that wasn't necessarily me. And that's hard. And I think when you have the pressure of making someone money or yourself money, that can get tough too, you know? So I do think it's interesting now but oh, by the way, self-producing, it's a lot of motherfucking work and it's a lot of money, you know? But when you see somebody like Alex get, you know, $100 million or whatever it is from Spotify.
I mean, she got $100 million because she's a white girl. Yeah. Sorry. I mean, it's true.
Yeah.
Like, she hasn't broken the mold on conversations about sex and dating and stuff like that.
Yeah. Call your daddy. But
So,
a lot of those girls haven't. I mean, respectfully, look at Dear Media. What the fuck? I'm not here to like bash people, but it's very formulaic, but they're making a ton of money. So it's like,
that's the progression of the way this is going to go. And that's the way they want it. It doesn't mean that it's going to break through or carry through, but it definitely has been set up that way. You know, Joe Rogan's deal, Amy Schumer's Spotify deal, it wasn't a consistent show, wasn't consistent quality. Those things are unnerving because it's not a matter of fair. If your show is good and people listen, great. that's all that matters. Radio Andy, that's all that matters. There's a huge audience there. But in terms of like, a network that is led by predominantly Black or predominantly Asian or predominantly Hispanic, Latino, or whatever other that is out there, doesn't really exist. And if these decisions are being made upwards because of that, there's really no way to get around it unless you do your own thing and hustle hard and build your own audience. I don't feel like that's seductive to me, because those aren't the type of people that I want to attract to this. I really am committed and fully invested in talking to people over a certain age. And if people under a certain age are interested, they're welcome to listen. But I feel like it's a neglected audience after a certain point, because there's a certain type of sound and vehicle and vertical that people are receiving content on and they're being inundated with. And there's certain audiences that just aren't being plugged in or dealt with the care that I think we try to really bring to the table.
Do you think, I know, again, when we started, or at least I started in this world, it was all like celebrities. I feel like a lot of networks didn't even care what the show was about. It just like needed to be a big name. Do you think that's still the case?
Oh, yeah.
You do?
It happens. Even where I'm at, right? I'm part of My Cultura Network, which is one of iHeart's entities. And so I feel the difference of the celebrities are getting podcasts, and the promotion that goes into their shows is way different than the promotion that I get into my show.
Yeah.
I also wrote a scripted podcast that was on Wondery. It is on Wondery, and it's a holiday podcast. We're nearing the holidays. In a month or two, start listening to it. But when we went to pitch that show, part of the original pitch was like, who do you have attached? And we had big names attached. And so it moved it along more quickly. I mean, it's a narrative scripted podcast, but in terms of like celebrities talking, it's not something I want to listen to, but probably name recognition. That's the way it kind of is in all of entertainment. Unfortunately, like when you go into a TV pitch, it's like, who do you have attached? It just it speeds things along, and it gives people a guarantee. If you say, I have a great idea, I have a lot of great ideas, but that great idea doesn't get me as far if I don't say, and it doesn't matter who it is. If someone was ever a celebrity on a TV show once, they count as a celebrity, and it's soul crushing to say, here's this great format idea. Let's get, I don't want to say, someone, and then it might be someone you don't like, but then it gets, it's just kind of a sausage grinder. It's just a little bit of kind of the way the business is used to running.
Yeah. And it just feels like podcasting is no different, because the money is definitely there. It's just interesting. Of course, I come from it from a business perspective. I sell advertising against some of the biggest produced and published shows, which is fucking weird, because I'm like, what about for $5 you can have cool, I'll read you 1,000 host reads, But
isn't that the challenge of what we do, is to say, here's my niche of the market or my little corner, and it's so specific, and is like, just to play devil's advocate, like, isn't it the challenge on all of us to think of the thing? Because I do also have another podcast that's not on Sirius, but like, it is kind of like, what's your little corner that you can build upon, like any small business,
right?
And say, they're done with me.
They're like, don't mention your podcast name. No, I think the onus is on us.
If I had like a lesbian vaginal lube, I would want you to advertise it.
You know what the crazy thing,
but I wouldn't want a big, maybe celebrity advertise
to do it. Well, they wouldn't. I would gladly talk about lube. So call me up anytime. My audience, though, I've really gotten to know my audience deeply, and it's predominantly straight white women who want to either have a queer friend or maybe are bi-curious, or I don't know. Actually, I don't know why anyone, that's what I've gathered. The lesbians don't, I am not Ashley Gavin out here. Like, it's the queer female audience is actually not really my audience, which is interesting. I think maybe they're confusing me with like a woman they met at the Brentwood Country Mart that they think is me, but it's not. And they're listening to my podcast, but, no, but I think you're right. I think it is about niche. I just see that it can, or not rather see, but I can feel sometimes that it can feel daunting when I'm like reading the news and I'm like, oh my God, like, what is this all where I know why I do it, but then, you can get a little bit frustrated being alone or not getting the promotion that you're hoping for, even if you are with a network or whatever it is?
I mean, I don't have a network and I don't want one, specifically because of the things that you mentioned. I like my editor. I don't want another editor. He's a great editor. I want to talk about the things that I want to talk about, and I feel really comfortable about those topicalities. I don't think anybody could bring me a producer. I've been podcasting since 2008. I think I have a fundamental understanding of what I want to talk about and what the people who like listening to me like hearing. Do I want a bigger audience? Yeah, I think everybody does. Right. But I think I have to be strategic about. I've had to be strategic about this podcast that I currently have because I work in entertainment. So my takes are hot, and I have to go in, and I never know when I might interact with someone that I either talked about or worked with. I mean, it's happened.
No, not with you, Wynter. Come on. I mean, same girl.
but I think pop culture, it dominates. Like, I don't think we need any more Bravo podcast. Like, all the drama with Bravo, the Heather McDonald shit and the Jeff shit, like, that is interesting on like a niche scale. But when the world is the way that it is, trying to find a balance between talking about things that are fun and interesting and exciting and that everybody's talking about, Barbie, whatever, and then also trying to come back to matters of the heart, is something that I'm more interested in. 10 years ago, I would have not felt this way. 20 years ago, you could not pay me to talk about my personal life. You couldn't pay me to talk about Ozempic. You couldn't pay me to talk about my husband's relapse during COVID. You couldn't pay me to talk about losing 4 babies during COVID. You couldn't pay me to talk about these personal things that happened because it's a matter of, I'm a Black woman. I was raised in a household. You don't talk about your personal life in public. But I felt like it was important that my audience knew that I had 4 losses. I felt like it was important they knew that I was going through IVF. I felt like it's important that I was 100 pounds overweight and now I'm not. And how did that happen? Because I started Ozempic. I feel like these things are important because I'm aging. And I'm not aging as a boomer like my mom's aging. The way she aged was different. The way I'm aging going into Gen X is different. So I have a lot more things at my, handy to me than my mom in San Francisco had growing up and watching her go through that and talking about those things in a fun, interesting, funny way is something that I'm committed to, because I don't think that I'm the only person dealing with a husband in recovery. I don't think I'm the only person dealing with loving Ozempic and singing it from the mountains and would literally sound of music on that shit. I don't think I'm the only person who's had losses and who's still trying to have a baby over 40. So when I see that most of the podcasts are for Bravo fans, no offense, because I do love Bravo. Yeah, I probably watch more Bravo than you have.
I'm sure.
And that's okay. I feel like there is a place for them. I'm not denigrating them, but I don't see a place where you can be entertaining and funny and emotional and connected talking about the craziness of being a woman of color working in this business and trying to keep true to your principles and morals without corrupting yourself and dealing with life, but having these outsized experiences. That's
what I want to listen to.
Thank
you. Yeah.
Yes. Because there's something so important about the identifying with someone.
And that's why I want to hear yours. Can't wait. I'm running home to listen to yours.
So good. There's just something I was very open and vulnerable in my podcast about, being trans, being a Mexican kid, what my family did for a business. I've been sober for 16 years, like all that stuff. So the DMs that I get are from people who have had those experiences. Like, I thought you were talking about audiences earlier. I thought for sure my audience was going to be trans women. Not at all. It's mothers. It's mothers who have kids who are thinking of transitioning, or kids that are different, that get bullied. It's people who have family members who are addicted to drugs or alcoholism. So it's so different. It's so funny because what I thought was going to happen from recording day one to what ended up happening was the complete opposite. And I'm so grateful for that because I get to give back to a community.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, same with, showing up to a pop culture morning show is not where I thought I would touch people's lives too. I was addicted to drugs on the air, got sober on the air, got into recovery on the air, and my DMs are all from people who have struggles that way too. And that's when things changed. That's why I started to be more grateful for my job instead of just talking and making jokes about the headlines. That's when it became something that was, I felt like I had a sense of purpose through that.
Well, and your live show, which everyone should see. Don't you have another one coming up?
The 22nd, and then the 24th in P-Town, 26th in New York City.
Which I absolutely loved. And I love you talking about getting sober, going into recovery in your own. I'm not like the biggest musical theater fan. I have to be I can't be vulnerable and honest and not be honest to you, John. But I would come to your musical theater show any day. It was amazing.
I wouldn't even classify it as musical theater.
You are a very amazing Broadway performer. I mean, John, you are.
But I do think performing live and getting out and meeting so people can interact with you that aren't wellness check. Okay. That people can meet you who listen to you every morning or listen to your show or they feel like they know you is important. That's why live podcasts are successful.
But what if nobody shows up? That's what I tell myself.
Talk to your therapist about that. You're going to show up and you're going to do your live podcast and you're going to record it and you're going to then put bumpers that say, the funny thing about the episode you're about to hear is that it was a live show and no one showed up. And it's hilarious.
Okay. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. I love you all. And thank you for doing this. I always try to go in. Obviously, I cope with life by making jokes. But what I wanted to talk about how everybody gets really vulnerable. I'm glad Ashley could join us for a little bit because she's gone through all types of shit recently on the internet. But everybody here, which is why I love you all individually. Emmy, we just met, but I love you already, is how vulnerable everybody is. And I think, everybody here is a performer. Everybody here is funny. Everybody here is incredibly talented. But I think you're right. I think when I listen to things that really, really impact me, like your show most recently, it's when people are being their authentic selves and as vulnerable as possible, which probably makes the boomer generation just fucking cringe beyond. Oh, I know.
Are we wrapping up?
I felt like it was a natural place to wrap, but the floor is yours. Go for it.
I was going to say that I just want to bring up the fact that I'm starting this new show, Tangent Island. Specifically because, and we didn't talk about, I don't know what you guys are getting out of this talk, but I just felt like it was important because
I guilted a lot of people into coming this evening, but then I think a lot of these people are your fans.
My back told me a lot. I felt like what you're going through, I just want to talk about the vulnerability of doing a show that no longer serves you.
Yes, yes, please.
Because if anybody's questioning anything, I don't care if it's a podcast, but I've never been more now is the time to do the thing that you feel like you don't want to do more than ever. And the process of trying to develop this has not gone without a lot of crying and consideration and development, because it's my first time doing it solo. I care about it so much that I want it to do well. I'm not taking a passing interest in it like I have in the past about other things. And it's really important that it looks and feels like me. When you have a show with other people, there's a tendency for somebody to take it into a direction, if you're not careful, more into a direction that you might not necessarily want it to go, but you let it go there because it's just easier to not fight them. And it's I've never experienced a moment where I've literally surrendered to something and then I'm surreptitiously planning an exit. And it doesn't mean that the experience has been wholly negative. It means that it's time to move on and evolve into a different space. So everything about this new show is a combination of all of those learnings and the experience of, being obsessive about pop culture, and then reality kind of falls on you. So I feel like if you're thinking about doing a show, or if you haven't developed a show, or you have something in your mind, don't be, like Ashley said, don't be threatened by the expense of it, or there's ways to do it where it costs virtually nothing. Just do it.
That's real. Well, thanks everybody.
You can do it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. And listen to Cool.
Yes, and listen to Cool.
Yes. Thank
And listen
you.
to Discretion Advised and listen to Naughty. Go get them.
And listen to Emmy's show. Please, Crumbs.
Crumbs. Bye.
Bye.